Welcome to another edition of Foothills Finds with Sharon Hales. The historic Rialto Theatre was famous even before La La Land was filmed here. Today I'd like to introduce you to the man whose life goal is to preserve this landmark jewel, one of the last single-screen theaters in Southern California. I'm standing inside the Rialto Theatre in South Pasadena on Fair Oaks Avenue with Scott Norton, who is the founding director of the Friends of the Rialto.
Yes.
Scott, tell us your history with the Rialto Theatre and what is so special about it.
Oh, okay, wonderful. My history, I started here, coming here when I was 8 years old. My mom brought me here to introduce me to classic movies, and I fell in love with the classic theater.
What kind of movies did you see?
I saw, I think, all of the Hitchcock movies. We saw Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, so everything from Silence to I think the Hitchcock movies really sort of struck a chord with me.
And I know there's an orchestra pit in there. Was there
Yeah.
live music at the time when you came?
No, I'm not that old. No, it was all sound movies. Even the silent movies, when I was seeing them, the sound was recorded. Since then, we've done actual silent movies with live accompaniment, which is really what I eventually want to do more of.
Okay, so we'll talk about how the public can actually come into the Rialto Theatre to some of their special events a little bit later. But right now, I've asked Scott to show us some very special spots in the Rialto Theatre that he'd like to tell us about that lend to its historical significance and beauty. So Scott, show us these secret spots that people might not know about.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go. Okay.
Scott, tell us about this beautiful artistic water fountain.
Okay, this is one of the original pieces of the Rialto Theatre. A lot of people think this is Batchelder tile, and I did for years. I thought it was Batchelder tile, but I talked to a tile expert, and this is actually another brand that was very popular in the 1920s. So this original peacock tile, 91 years old, and then if you look on the side, there's some additional handcrafted tiles that I didn't even notice for the first 30 years of hanging around here.
Wow.
But these are all original. My guess is that this was probably brought in the 40s. I would love to see if maybe these tiles go all the way down to the floor someday. But it doesn't look like it matches. But this is the original stuff.
This is very special. Okay. Scott, I understand this theater was built in 1925. Tell us where we are right now.
Okay, we are standing in the middle of the 91-year-old Rialto Theatre. It was built originally as a vaudeville house. So on the very opening night, October 17th, 1925, there were 5 snappy acts of vaudeville, including acrobats and a singing group from the Canary Islands. And then they showed a feature-length movie called It Happened to Jones with a live orchestra. It was a silent movie, so there was a live orchestra in the pit and the Wurlitzer organ. So when you came to the Rialto for an evening of entertainment, it was a full evening with live theater, musical acts, and a movie.
So you got your money's worth.
You definitely got your 25 cents worth, yes.
Okay, you mentioned an organ. Was it the kind that came up out of the ground? Where was the organ situated?
The organ was in the orchestra pit.
Okay.
It wasn't on a riser. It wasn't on a lift. It just sat there. It's a magnificent instrument, and it was removed in the 70s after a fire. I'm not sure if you can see, there's a black section of board up there. That's the hole that the fire department had to knock in there to put out the fire and get the pipes out.
So the pipes were up there.
Pipes were up there on both sides. Those are the organ chambers. And the exciting thing is that the original organ console is now in the possession of Friends of the Rialto. It was donated back to us. So we have the original Mighty Wurlitzer.
Through a series of miraculous events, which we can talk about another time.
Yeah.
Tell us, Scott, about some of the art features that are in here.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Most everything you see here is the original artwork, the original plaster work, all of the cast characters, from our lovely ladies here to the gargoyle up above the proscenium. These are all the original plaster work. I think some of it has been repainted, so I can't vouch for all of the original colors, at least on the low stuff. If you look up high, no one got up there on a ladder, so that's the original stuff. If you look on either side, there are these little windows, the little archways that look out onto a scene, sort of a Moroccan fantasy scene. those murals are original, and about 30 years ago I went up on a ladder and I cleaned all the grime off so you could see them. They were almost black with soot. Now you can see the pretty murals.
So are you the entire restoration committee here?
I've done a lot. In the 80s when I started Friends of the Rialto, I was working directly with the manager at the time, Mark Weber, and he no longer, he passed away, but he and I would spend late nights climbing through corners and crevices and replacing light bulbs, which have now all burned out again because it's been 30 years. But we really explored this place, every inch of it.
We're up on stage, and this is the original curtain, as Scott tells me. This is so beautiful, and I'm surprised at how vibrant the colors have remained.
It's amazing that it still exists, really. At 91 years old, this is all hand stenciled. You can see the brushstrokes, and it's been here, hanging here for 91 years. It amazes me that it still hasn't fallen apart.
And so, what were you telling me about your role as far as preserving the Rialto?
So I think until we actually do a proper restoration, my job, the way I see my job, is to preserve it as it is and not let it degrade any further. So, I want to make sure that there's no roof leaks and water gets on the fabric and that there's no mold. And I just, I'm here every time it rains just to make sure that nothing gets in. I just want to stop any degradation from happening.
We were standing down in the orchestra pit, and Scott was telling me what's underneath.
Yes, there's actually, under the stage, there's actually 12 dressing rooms, a green room for the orchestra to relax in. There's even a trap door so that magicians could do disappearing acts in the stage.
So there's a whole world underneath where we're standing.
And no one gets to see that, unless you're a performer. So this is the original 91-year-old dimmer board, and it still works. And this is the footlights, which is the only bulbs that we actually have, but they work.
One of the most notorious pieces of information I've heard lately is that La La Land was filmed at the Rialto, and Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone were actually here. Now, you may confuse us for Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, but we are not they. This is where they were sitting, is that right? How many days were they filming here?
They were here for 3 or 4 days. I wasn't here for the entire shoot, but they were here for about 3 or 4 days. They had big lighting equipment in here. They projected Rebel Without a Cause up on the screen, and Ryan and Emma were sitting right here.
And tell us about the screen that's up there right now behind the movie screen.
Behind the movie screen, there's actually a backdrop from the vaudeville era, and it's hanging up in the fly gallery. We haven't lowered it down. Probably hasn't been lowered since the 30s.
Oh, so maybe someday we'll get to take a look at that. I'd love to.
Me too. So these are the original 1925 seats. All of the downstairs was like this too. The wood frame and the sort of greenish blue leatherette. And then if we look the other way, we'll see what the loge seats looked like. So these are the loge seats. These were the expensive seats of the house and the most comfortable, just like big overstuffed chairs. And the front of the balcony and the last 5 rows of the orchestra were these big loge seats. So this is the remaining projector. Originally there were 2 35mm projectors, and this is the last one left. And we'll probably try to fix it, but if not, I still want to have 35 and digital up here.
What's this piece right here?
This is the way that they would rewind the films on the reels. So as long as they were using film, this is an important part. And then they have the storage down here.
Oh, wow.
So the Marquee is a really special thing to me also. There's 2 parts of the Marquee. There's the sort of the letterbox part here, and then there's the blade sign. The blade sign's the original. That's 91 years old. It's not lit right now, but hopefully it will be, as I've shown. And then this part was part of the 1940s modernization. So the old Marquee was just a 3-sided box, very dark and very hard to read as you were driving by. And the modernization where they put the angles on were all about so drivers could read it better.
Marketing.
Marketing, yeah. Anyway, but this is the one anyone alive will remember, so we'll restore this one.
So what famous people have been to the Rialto?
Well, I can think of a few. The opening night, It Happened to Jones was the premiere movie, and it was a Hollywood premiere. They brought the searchlights over, and the stars and the director were here. So the biggest star at the time was Reginald Denny, who became a character actor later on in life, but he was a leading man, and he was here on the stage. The director, William Sider, was here. And then, of course, we have the stars that have shot movies here. So The Player was here, and that means we had Tim Robbins, Vincent D'Onofrio, they were here. One of the Scream movies was here, so they're the stars of that. A lot of movies, a lot of TV shows have been filmed in the Rialto.
And you've really grown up with this theater then,
Yeah.
haven't you, Scott?
Ever since I was a kid.
And it seems like you're really taking ownership of it and having a really strong stewardship over it, and that you have a great love for the Rialto, and so you're trying to carry it forward into the future. Tell us what that means.
Well, I'm not the only one. This theater has there's a soft spot in a lot of people's hearts for this theater. I've talked to generations of families who've grown up coming to the Rialto, having first dates here, having having their parties here, seeing their favorite movies. It's a place where memories are made right here in the theater. And when you have a really small town community like South Pasadena, it's generations of people who have these strong feelings. So it's not just me. But what I'm hoping to do is to preserve and restore the theater so that we continue making new memories for new people, new generations.
And currently the Rialto is closed to the public. So for people who want to come in and get a look at what is really inside the Rialto, the rich history that's here and the gorgeous artwork, how can they ever get inside this place?
Get on my mailing list. So we have a mailing list. When we do events, we do special events like fundraisers. We will let everyone know on our mailing list, on our Facebook page and website. And the special events, we're not doing that many of them, but when we do them, that's how you find out. And eventually, the goal is that we're going to raise enough money that we can sign the lease, restore the thing, and open it, and start doing shows on a regular basis. That's the ultimate goal.
So currently the Rialto is a jewel in South Pasadena, definitely worth coming to drive by. Hopefully you can get inside at one of the special events, but just imagine what an incredible jewel it will be when it has been refurbished and reopened to the public and in its splendor showing wonderful movies and shows again. Thank you so much, Scott, for a wonderful tour. It's just been a trip down memory lane, and they weren't even my memories. But it was so exciting to be on stage and in the orchestra pit, and you really brought it to life. It's been a pleasure.
Great. We'll have you back for a show.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
For more information on the Rialto, you can go to friendsoftherialto.org. You can get on their mailing list, you can volunteer, and you can certainly donate. If you'd like more information about me, go to SharonHales.com, and I'll see you next time on Foothills Finds.